Welcome to Rhythms and Algorithms, Reimagining Music with Artificial Intelligence, in tune with the 8th edition of the All About Music conference that starts tomorrow. My name is Asad Lalji, I'm the CEO of Avid Learning, and thank you for joining us here this evening. We're delighted to be back at IFPI and continue, that's Ice Factory Ballad Estate, and continue our ongoing collaboration and partnership with them. AI is reimagining the world of music creation and consumption and shaking up the music world in unprecedented ways. Global artists like Paul McCartney and A.R. Rahman have used AI to duet with former bandmates for new recordings. The AI cover song scene has exploded with over 10 billion views of AI-generated song renditions on platforms such as TikTok. It's pushing the musical envelope, bridging the past, the present, with the future, but simultaneously also raises critical ethical questions about originality, ownership, and the role of human creativity. Since 2022, Avid Learning has explored the transformative intersection of AI and the arts, decoding its influence on the visual arts, literature, design, and cinema. We began with the AI and the future of tech art, followed by hands-on workshops on AI and photography, design thinking, writing in the age of AI, and last month we presented a symposium on AI and the law. The impact of AI in the arts was one of our key focus areas in our creative industries conferences for the G20 Culture Trackers in Mumbai, Bangalore, and New Delhi. And this continues to be the spotlight of this year's conferences, which we had last month in Cochin and which we will host this month in Mumbai on the 24th of August. But this brings me to our task at hand. IFPI, India Music Exchange, and Avid Learning present Rhythms and Algorithms, Reimagining Music with AI, an immersive discussion with a diverse group of creative voices. Please join me in welcoming our panel of experts. Founder and CEO, Snafu Records, Ankit Desai. Question. Artist and founder, One Mind Music, Arjun Kanungo. Lead at Wink Studio Community Business and Content, Label and Podcast Distribution, Sunny Vyas. Professor, Creative Industries, Toronto Metropolitan University, Charlie Wall Andrews. And our moderator for the evening, managing partner, Tin Nuts, Rafael Pereira. I think he needs a little more of an applause. All the hard work he's done. Thank you all for being here. I would say braving the rain, but we were lucky there was no rain. But thank you for being here in such great numbers. Look forward to a riveting conversation. We have only 2 mics, so I'm just going to give this to Rafael and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for the generous introduction and the extra round of applause for me. Asad says that's all I'm getting. I was told there would be a judge in the audience today, so I'm going to be on my best behavior, I guarantee you. But thank you all for being here on a Monday evening. It's a packed house. We were scared that people are going to be answering emails till 8 in the evening, and you're all here. So thank you to all of the audience. Thank you to the speakers. I know I should be doing this at the end, but before we get into the panel, how many of you here are artists? How many of you are in the music business? And how many of you listen to music? Okay, great. Everyone's listening. Yes. I think we'll do a round of introductions, just so you get to know what everyone does. And I'd like you to introduce yourselves, but also maybe an anecdote or how AI has affected or maybe improved your lives while you introduce yourselves. Over to you, Charlie.
Charlie Wallanchus, it's great to be here in Mumbai. So I wear a couple hats. Yes, I'm a professor at TMU specializing in creative industries, but I'm also in the industry. I'm the executive director of SOCAN Foundation. So it's basically a CSR wing of the performing rights organization in Canada. And I'm deeply involved in community. I'm on the Advisory Council for Music Canada, which is the organization for the major labels, as well as doing work with Women in Music Canada. And very involved in community. So it's great to be here. I'm excited to see where the conversation goes.
Hi, so this is Sunny Vyas, and I take care of content, community, and distribution at Wing. So we have a separate section called Wing Studio. And along with that, now I've started working for labels also. So earlier label used to have a little struggle to start working with Wing directly. Now we are coming up with solutions to them. I'm going to take care of that and podcast distribution too in future. So there's a lot of things which I'm doing right now. And AI is everywhere actually. If I just have to like give you a single example, it's like whenever you go on any streaming platform and you get that based on your last listening sessions or based on your last listenings. So that's what AI for you. So that's how we start. Like we use AI like anything. So all streaming platforms basically.
Hi guys, my name is Arjun Kanungo. I am an artist. I also run a music label, and I've recently started a AI tech startup, which is building a tool for creators to have access to like legal contracts and stuff like that. With my partners are all lawyers. So it's a new field for me, and I'm just kind of understanding it, and I'm so thrilled to be here with these guys on the same podium, because honestly, I feel like, being an artist, you're not used to being on the business side of things, and I've kind of been figuring that out for the last 3 years. So my music label, it's only 3 years old, and last year we got some funding for it, and we expanded to Japan this year, and we're planning to expand to Korea as well. So there's some fun stuff that we're doing, and in the meantime, we're also building tools to kind of help artists and creators become more effective in this incredibly fast-paced world of AI. So I think that if I can't possibly name like one situation where my life has been changed by AI. It's pretty much now everywhere, from the way we discover music, to the way we create music, to the way we distribute music or market music. Everything is now AI, right? But I think it's important to kind of, figure out what exactly that means for us as artists. And I think that's why I'm here, to kind of learn from my fellow panelists and figure that out.
Hi everyone, my name is Ankit. I am the founder and CEO at Snafu Records. And Snafu, for those of you who don't know, stands for Situation Normal, All Fucked Up. And that's that's a little bit what's happening with with AI. Just being the latest in a long series of disruptions that's happened in our industry. So what Snafu does is basically we have an algorithm that scans through Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, etc., and finds undervalued artists from all around the world that that maybe need a platform to succeed. And I think a lot of the hype and a lot of the talk around AI historically, or at least in the last year or so, has been about generative AI. But there's a very, very big part of the practice that is specifically around classification of if you have a human song, can you predict if it's going to be a hit or not? And that's essentially like the area that we work the most in. I would say probably one of, in terms of anecdotes, that's probably maybe been the thing that has had the most impact on my career in terms of finding artists in their bedroom in Indonesia or in Colombia or wherever that might be. And, the historic model, the American Idol model was, you go to an audition and you stand in front of judges and then maybe they say if you're good or not. And now, in this case, now it's you don't call us, we call you, and I think that's been kind of the biggest change I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you'll get through if they don't have Truecaller AI that's blocking your calls. And but let's jump in. I mean, forgive me for the quips already, but let's jump right in. Right, you spoke about generative AI, and for those of you, just to break that term out, it's using it's powered by a language learning model that has kind of studied everything that's out there, whether they've taken licenses or not, and it's based on your input it's giving you what it's learned and what it thinks it will like, and that's what they call a generative work or a generative AI output. Correct me if I'm wrong. And what I'd like to get into is, right, there's amazing uses for AI. But in the creative industry, it really does have the ability to take away a lot of jobs. It has the ability to take away a lot of income. And the flat out question is, we can use AI to tell us what's the right time to put the gas off or to stop boiling an egg. Why do we need it to create music, which is kind of a human, emotive activity, right? So maybe Ankit, you can go first.
Great. As I'm holding on to it, I can go first. We've thought about this a lot, and we've had very, very heated debates about this a lot, because obviously a lot of us who work with AI and music are also creatives at heart. I think the biggest thing, if you take a step back and look at the evolution, has been that if you went like 20 years, 20, 25 years ago, you still needed to pay for like a very expensive studio. In many cases have, like a live band performing instruments in order to, get your recording, and then that's packaged and sent all over the world, right? There's been a huge change in distribution, obviously, in the last 15 years or so. So it doesn't cost anything to, really make or distribute the music, but you still need equipment worth thousands of dollars, and you need years and years of training to get what's in your mind, the creativity, out into the world. And I think I would see the advent of AI as just one more instrument in like a songwriter's toolbox that reduces the barrier to go from what's in your mind out into the world without needing, let's say, years of practice.
So is it an equalizer, puts everyone at an equal pedestal or playing field?
I mean, in a way, I think it will enable it for a lot more people to become creative and become musicians. I think one story that's very close to my heart, and I also know one of our colleagues here who's sitting, was with an artist we worked with in Sweden called Avicii, and without digital audio workstations, he maybe would not have been able to be as incredible of an artist as he was, because he was not necessarily classically trained in instruments, but he was very, very good at like moving one note up or down until it sounded like what he wanted to hear in his workstation. And that's what made him a genius, because he came up with melodies that were just, that a classical pianist would just not even think about doing. And I think hopefully AI can enable a lot more stories like that.
Arjun, do you feel the same way? I mean, I know that for a lot of years, people thought T-Pain couldn't really sing. But it turns out he's just an amazing singer. But he knows how to use the hell out of, excuse my French, auto-tune, right? So what do you feel like, along the lines of what Ankit's saying, it is an artist's friend or enhancement tool more than anything else today?
I think it depends. I don't think that it's as clear-cut as, friend or foe. I think it's a much more nuanced conversation, just because the impact that AI is going to have economically on every artist, right? What we value the most in the world of artistry is rarity, something that's truly unique. And when you have something that commoditizes this and makes it like a commodity that anybody can do, what is the impact of that on the value of the art itself, right? Like if everybody could paint a Picasso, like would it be the same value as that one piece? So I don't think it's as simple as, yeah, okay, I like it or I don't like it. I don't think you can avoid it, that's for sure. Like the future is here, whether we like it or not. I don't think that's really the question. I think the question is that what, at the end of the day, does that mean for the artists that you were talking about, the artists that might lose work on this? Like, what does that mean for the guitar player who is doing sessions to, pay rent? Or what does it mean for the middle economy, right? Like, not the guys at the top, the 1% who have the money and the power to kind of employ AI, but the guys that, who were fundamental in creating hit tracks like 5 years ago, and now you can do that on a computer. Right, so if I work with a lot of real musicians, the guys who come into the studio and sit with me and write music, and I feel like without those guys today, I don't think half the tracks that I have released would have had the same impact, because there is so much about the collaborative process that brings about the unique product. It's not just, the fact that, there's a bunch of notes together. It's the whole human experience of collaborating with somebody that eventually gives you that final product. So I'm practical about it. I do think that it's here to stay, but I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's too early to tell. And I feel like, I think what would make me happier was if we could have AI tools on the other end tracking what is AI and what is not AI. Like, I don't want to find out like 5 years down the line that my favorite track was written by a computer. Like, if I knew back, like when it came out that this is AI and I had the choice of choosing whether I like it or not, knowing that it's AI, I'd be a lot happier. That's all I'm saying.
Go ahead, Sunny.
Same question.
I mean, if you want to frame it differently, kicking off what Arjun is saying, I mean, an AI tool to tell you if a song's made by AI or not. I think there are a bunch of music recognition technology companies out there that are able to tell you where a song comes from. But let me put it this way. I see DSPs are liking the fact that there's a lot of AI-generated music now.
Actually, we got threats from a lot of labels these days. And the threats are pretty clear. They ask us not to play this music. They ask us to recognize this music. They themselves have no technology. And they're expecting us to build something which recognizes these kind of, this kind of music particularly, and choose not to play, put it on our streaming platforms. And we are still talking to them that you guys help us. If you have anything, any technology where you think that, we should work on, you suggest us. Otherwise, we had a call with our product team, the team which is pretty much involved into 5G also at Airtel. We were discussing the same issue, that how to recognize these songs. Again, the softwares, the apps which are there in industry market are unauthorized. And you need to pay some basic fees, and they will help you out up to hardly like 40-45%. And rest you have to use your own brains to understand whether it's AI made or not. But I personally, if you ask the same question what you just asked other panelists, is, people are enjoying music. They really don't care about it's coming through AI or not, or the session musicians. They are simply enjoying, like Husn Tera Tauba Tauba, the song what we heard recently, and we all danced, we all enjoyed. We don't know ये कैसे बना हुआ है, कितने session artists थे, and how many beats or XYZ things they made through AI. We just enjoyed the song, and we could see, there are some AI songs which are already there on streaming platform which we couldn't recognize in time, and we could see the response. People are enjoying those songs. So I always say that AI is like there are many, seriously. Not super hit, because the labels are not supporting these AIs. So generally, the super hit song belongs to some or other label for sure.
But Sunny, given the chain of title or the supply chain for music in the country, would the labels even know if there was an AI tool used, or there's some sort of AI that has touched their music?
There are people sitting in each and every label for sure, 110%, and this is their dedicated job. They are working particularly to see that what AI is generating and how people are using it. They are discussing with different labels and blah blah XYZ. They basically need their money to recover. They are particularly looking for some or other license to be there to get formed into the industry where they get some extra income from this source. So yeah, it's a detailed discussion. Labels are okay for AI, to support AI. Labels are okay if you want to take AI's help and generate your music. They just want their money, their due. Like, pay us some fees, maybe yearly memberships, or because the AI is basically getting trained on their data, right? We don't know which data.
So pointed question maybe to you and Charlie and Ankit. If we pay the labels and we license their database, then no one has any problem with AI-generated music?
Yeah, it's like, see, for example, there is XYZ label, right? I don't want to take names. There is XYZ label, and they have a catalog of 10,000 songs. And if some AI company pays them well and get their license and get trained on that data, they can really come up with something really nice. And if people are enjoying it, it's a good to go source.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you. I'm not done with that question, but I'm going to come back.
See, my only thing is I always put this dialogue that, AI is like a diesel to your car. Either you run your car on it or you burn your car with it. It's a simple thing. But it's not going anywhere, that's for sure.
Fantastic. I'm sure Elon Musk would agree with you on that one, right? Charlie, you work with a lot of creators. You've just recently done a song camp bridging some gaps between India and Canada. What's your take on this? Do you, maybe if you can reveal, did any of them use a bit of AI in those camps? And
No, AI was not used as part of the creative process with the Punjabi song camp that we held. But what I do want to say is, like, when we look at the music industry, it's always been faced with some sort of disruption. Like, let's go back 2 decades when the internet came around. We all know what happened, but there's a spin-off, right? We start to see DSPs come to emergence, create lots of jobs, new ways for artists to disseminate their music. Of course, it's not perfect, and the monetization aspect needs a bit of work, but it's a new innovation. And I think, building on what you say, AI is here to stay. We're going to see new innovations emerge as a result of this disruption. But there's this really awkward phase where, like, policy and industry and, like, public perception is a little bit it's not aligned. And so it's difficult to be able to navigate. How do we embrace it? How do we use the same language? How do we do it ethically, right? Which I'm sure we'll get into. But bottom line is that there's always trade-offs. There's always winners and there's always losers. And that's just the reality with any kind of innovation, right? AI in the music industry is, another example where we're faced with these challenges, and then other industries are going to learn from how we navigate and move around it, just like 2 decades ago.
And you have an example for us today, right? Of
Yes.
so maybe you want to.
Yeah, let's cue. So, long story short, I just arrived to Mumbai, right? And I said, let's use a platform and let's write a song. I put the prompt that I use through, there we go, AI-generated song. It was actually this morning, 2 a.m. And so we're going to play the song that AI generated in 15 seconds with the prompt that I had put here. Let me just read. Write a song about traveling from Toronto to Mumbai. Yeah.
Sounds so nice from Toronto to Mumbai. Talking tech and jingles, artificial vibes don't die. Music love that mingles. Landing lights now in my view. City's heartbeats loud. Rhythms bold and ever true. Innovations proud. Lead with minds that sing and fly. New ideas we share. AI tunes and Asian cries. Magic's in the air, from Toronto to Mumbai. Talking tech and jingles, artificial vibes don't die. Music love that mingles.
And I think and it's interesting because, Suno.
Wait, you're clapping for Charlie,
Right.
the prompt. What do you, guys, you're clapping?
Well, it took 15 seconds and they gave me 2 different versions,
And
right?
this is Suno?
Yeah, and it's free.
Can someone give the link of Suno to the Life Insurance Corporation of India?
I'm screaming.
At this point, I think it can seriously help them with their jingles and their ad campaigns. They're trying to say everything, but I think they need a better way to say how to sell policies.
But what's really fascinating here is that, yes, it can be a tool in the songwriter's box and it could be helpful, but what can happen is it's going to flood the supply. Right? There's only so many spaces where artists can be discovered, get on playlists, disseminate their music. And if it's flooded with a bunch of AI-generated music, it's really going to disrupt how living human artists are able to sustain a living, grow their careers when, 15 seconds, right?
So,
And free. Imagine if you paid for it, you get a video with it too, put that to your YouTube, blah, 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 blah. But I will say that I did push it to the limit. I said, do this in Taylor Swift's voice. And this company's in a lawsuit now because the major labels have, like among some of these platforms, have said, hey, you're using our catalog to train. We do not consent to this. And this comes back to ethics, right? But I did say, do it in Taylor Swift's voice, and it actually rejected it.
Nice. Arjun, what if they were to say, do it in your voice? How do you personally feel about, this could easily be recorded in your voice, right?
Yeah, it could. I no doubt that
there's enough material that you've sung out there.
For sure. So I have a perspective on this which may not be super popular, but I do feel like the platform that leans into this the hardest is going to suffer the most in the long term. And I'll tell you my thinking behind this, right? So like Charlie said, that once you have a supply chain that's unlimited, right, and people are flooding the platform with AI, and there are a million tracks. I mean, this year in India, there were 1 million tracks released overall, right? So if you have like 10 million, for example, and there's only so much discoverability on the track, on the platform, because now there's 10 times more content and not as many times more listeners. What happens to the good artists who are like, I'm not going to, give this platform my time because there are other platforms who are not supporting this. And I think that essentially when you look at an audience, they don't only come for a song. Most of recorded music in history has been after the artist. Like when we like an artist, we go repeatedly and search for that artist's music because it's just the way discovery is, right? Like if I'm a fan of, say, for example, I don't know, like, give me an artist you like, Ankit.
Pink Floyd.
Yeah, say, for example, I am a fan of Pink Floyd, right? So if Pink Floyd drops a track, it doesn't only become about the track, it's about the culture around the track, the hype around the track, like what the track means to a particular group of people, which makes discoverability so much easier, right? So if you're separating the art from the artist, which is like the biggest debate here, what is going to motivate me as an artist to be on the platform? Like basically nothing, right? Like say, for example, Wink tomorrow says, we are opening the floodgates to AI, and AI is going to generate 1 million tracks a day. Which is super possible, by the way. I'm not even exaggerating here. It's very easy for it to do that. So suppose the top 100 has 50 AI tracks, right? And that's because the algorithm has now been trained on what people like. Let's follow that train of thought for like a year or two, where people are like consuming like mad. It's like a vicious circle, right? Like you have generic triggers. There's that very popular meme, which is like generic triggers, more generic, and then you have like this loop, which is constant. And then people just don't know what they like anymore because it's just been fed the same stuff, right? So why as an artist would I be motivated to be on that platform? I wouldn't. I would for sure say that, you know what, there are better ways to monetize my music, better ways to be discovered. And there will be people who capitalize on that as well. There'll be people who will be like, we'll make a platform which has no AI music, or we have AI detection. And so I think it's a very complicated thing to kind of predict, but I do think that the people who lean into this the hardest are going to suffer. But in the long run. In the short term, no.
You made a reference to predictive AI, right? That's what, and predictive AI is now
everything is AI, man. Now everything.
Yeah, I mean,
as much as musicians hate to deny it, everything that we use, every tool has AI in it now. Like I have like a little software that cleans up the background noise. Even that's AI. Like every single thing we use is AI. So it's not that we are devoid of it. I'm just saying that in terms of like the creative process, where you don't allow the artist to be the artist anymore. That's the problem. That's my only take on this.
I'm all for making lives better, right? Making our lives better, great to have AI in making our lives better. What I wanted to really get into is, we spoke about generative AI, and that's the debate right now. There is a debate. With predictive AI, like you said, it seems to be kind of just anyone's game at this point. It seems the open season for predictive AI. Everyone's rolled out the red carpet and say, hey, as long as it's helping me discover better music, helping me discover artists, not generating music and then feeding that to me, but as long as it's giving me more of what I like, they can take all of my personal data also, right? right? Anyone opted out of Google at this point? No, right? So and
Yeah.
you as an artist as well, right? You've allowed AI to get into your system and see whatever's in there to learn some of your, let's say, composition habits so that it can clean up faster next time, right? You're okay with that? You're completely okay with it
Like I
learning?
said, it's not either or for me. I'm not saying that AI is going anywhere. Neither am I saying that I don't use it or I don't optimize it for my own work. What I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, there has to be a portion of the artist in the art. And that's what sells it. I don't think that it's the song itself that sells. Like, you will have your consumption because at the end of the day, platforms are optimizing for consumption. YouTube today optimizes for watch time. Like, they want you to come and like, they reward artists who are really optimizing watch time. So it's not that I'm saying that that's not the case. I'm saying 100% it's going to be around. I'm saying don't make it completely AI driven where there's no artist.
Okay.
I'm saying that because I think that is the recipe for disaster. That for art in general, right?
I have a question to ask around that, but I'll come back to you.
I feel like I've spoken way too much.
No. I think a story to go ahead.
I mean, see, this is what has happened in past also. So when we used to consume CDs and cassettes, and one of a sudden people got to know that you can listen to the music on internet too, or you can maybe work on data particularly. That was a time where we were exactly into a similar kind of a situation. People were worried how people are going to consume music. The Indians particularly would know that there were stalls jahan pe phone mein they used to give you data. They used to charge rupees 50 or 100 and they used to give you 1,000 songs.
Side loading, the side loading business.
Something like
Yeah,
that,
okay.
yeah. And those practices were not good. Government went against it and there were some laws and blah, blah. They used to go and raid those places. But how many times in person, practically, was that possible? Actually, the first streaming platform came into the scene to resolve this issue. Not to give you listening pleasure, but to resolve this issue. They approached all the labels and they said that you practically can't go out and catch all of these people. Rather, let's build something where people would come for free, so much of free content that they won't go out and go to the cyber cafes and get their data. That's how Spotify came into the scene. Actually, these are the ones who came with the solution. All the labels agreed to it for some percentage and some money. Some streaming money, like 3 paisa, 4 paisa, 10 paisa, whatever it is, or some dollars. And that's how they started working with labels. Labels started getting their benefits. They started running through advertisers, and the listeners got free music. This is a second time we are into a big shit and a big fuss. All these labels should come together, come up with some legalities, legal stuff, some agreements or some licenses.
Is it just the labels though, Sunny? And
labels or the creators, everyone for that matter. The way we use sync license. So if, for example, if Arjun tomorrow says, okay, to some AI company to get trained on his data and they are paying something in return, the way Arjun said that the artist has to be there, you're definitely going to be there because they're getting trained on your data. I don't know how much of the percentage, but that's the future what we are discussing, where we are not, we're not easy, we're not happy कि भाई मेरा बच्चा home school करेगा कल से. We are not trained like that.
I get your point to a certain extent. The artist has to be there and the artist has to be associated with the song. I guess that's why the listeners are tuning in, what drives people to a song.
Actually generate reports. The moment you give prompt, they have to generate one report which shows that the XYZ song has got trained on this data. It comes on their audit and you can ask that audit also to the AI company.
Charlie, you were nodding your head when Sunny was talking about specifically the labels needing to come together to decide what's the future of AI and training on their music.
I mean, I think it requires all stakeholders involved in the industry. I think it's really also a matter around trust and safety in the industry. And this is a challenge because, we all want to resolve the issue, but we don't want to share data. We don't want to because it's still a competitive marketplace, but we're all faced with the same problem. And I know there's work happening in the US to try to go deeper into this. I mean, around the world. Labels, artists, the whole ecosystem needs to be involved in addressing this. To what degree do we have transparency? I mean, you could see on Instagram now, you check a box to show if something was AI generated, for instance, right? We don't really have that when we're uploading music to distribution or whatnot. So there's no transparency, there's no framework, and the only way that that could actually be established is if stakeholders all come together and international associations to help push that forward. That involves artists. It involves...
At Wing Studio, we are doing that. We are putting actually the checkbox, and we are asking artists to submit, when they submit their song, they have to declare that this is AI generated.
So
And then we will take
the artists first declare that this is AI generated, or they've used an AI assisted tool.
Yep. As of now, this is, I guess, the safest most thing. Unless we conclude on some contracts or some licensing, they'll have to.
What about the labels?
Labels are not generating AI generated content much, because they still have all those equipments. They still have that facility to actually put, you know. It's not the hardcore, they're definitely, AI is everywhere. They'll also have to, in a way, in future, declare that it's AI generated song, but I don't think so, label, at a streaming platform, we are not seeing much data coming from
Everyone will respond to this.
Please. See, at a streaming platform, we are not getting that much data from label. That much, actually, it's negligible data.
Just to say,
I'll let Ankit go first.
Yeah, let Ankit go first. So Ankit, you also have a tool called Emma, right? Maybe you can, I definitely want you to answer the question of whether you're sending AI generated music into the distribution pipelines, and if you're checking any boxes saying it's AI generated or assisted. But maybe you can explain a bit about Emma and how you use AI in your day-to-day.
Absolutely. No, this is a great segue because it's Emma's time to shine. So I was going to say...
just in case there's a cuss word in Emma, also just give us a warning before.
Thank you. No, Emma's is Emma. Emma's Emma, you know, it's the early music measurement algorithm. Essentially, you know, this also came from a lot of heated internal debates where I think we all came to the conclusion that having a machine make sounds for another machine to interpret and then decide if it's good or not was not really the business that we wanted to be in. The business that we're in is that there's 100,000 human songs that are being released every day. And the goal of AI needs to be to spotlight those songs and those artists, because otherwise, you know, why are we really doing this? And so it's very much a that's where the difference between generative AI and I guess AI classification comes into play, where you can also use AI, which, you know, and that's been in process for years, where you essentially use it to put it in a bucket, like, is this a good song, is this not a good song, do people think this is a good song, or are people likely to not think, like you said, predictive AI. So that's Emma, where basically it scans through Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, etc., and then based on metrics of hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of songs that it's seen, it can classify like, oh, this song is following a similar trend to, let's say, Shawn Mendes in 2016 or whatever, and that then maybe gives that girl in her bedroom in Indonesia like a chance to succeed that maybe they otherwise would not have had. So at the moment, we don't have any AI-generated music that we put out. With that said, I think within 5 years, 80% of all music consumption is going to have some element of AI within it. With that said, I think, you know, to Arjun's original point, what we probably need in the music industry is, let's say, you know, in the US and Europe and so on, here as well, there's like a fair trade mark or whatever to say that, you know, and I mean, when I buy eggs at the store, it says, you know, these chickens have been like out and had a really nice life, and they were able, and I think you need to be able to say that for a song that you listen to, right? That this, you know, no songwriters were hurt in the making of this song.
That's a takeaway right there. That's the first takeaway. All of you should note down a checkbox to say no songwriters were harmed, or their jobs, or their families, or their careers were harmed. And Go ahead.
I just thank you. I want to come back to the labels though, because there is one example. I know TikTok is not accessible in India, to my understanding, but it is still a very powerful and popular platform around the world, especially in North America. And it was actually Universal Music Group that pulled its music from being licensed on TikTok for many reasons. But one of the settlements was ensuring that TikTok is involved in combating the use of AI, generative AI, deep fakes, and so forth, right? And I think like that is just one example of how labels can actually drive positive change, or with the labels suing organizations that are using works without permission to train, right? So they do have power, they are exercising influence, and it's one step to be able to move things forward in the right direction.
I hear you, and
That's the right way, actually.
at the same time, I'm going to throw a spanner into the works, right? There is, right now, if we were to play, we played your song, and Suno's covered, I guess. We'll have to read the terms and conditions to see who we have to pay what license fee to play that song for a public gathering, right? Today in India, you need about 6 licenses to play any song. If I want to take Arjun's song and put it in my ad for my brand new startup, I need his consent, I need the label's consent, he will give his approval to his publisher. I then also need to make sure that either I am paying for the public performance on that, or the performance rights or copyright society or collective management organization, IPRS, has been paid while that's publicly performed. But I can then go on to, let's say, a generative AI platform that's worked on a closed data set where everyone's consented to submit their songs for the model to learn. And what comes out essentially should be what used to be a myth in our industry, a copyright-free song, right? Where I need no licenses. There are no royalties that need to be paid. We can't really tell who the exact author is. How do you all feel about that? I think it simplifies all of our problems. Avid Learning could have its own jingle change every day for the rest of its life and not have to pay any authors.
Ask a question. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, cool. Just like take 20 seconds, and if you can please raise your hand. Why do you listen to music? Like personally? Sorry? To feel uplifted? Healing, I would say. Calming. Have fun. So, enjoy the moment. So it's such an important fabrication of our existence, of our humanity. And that's why we have to come back to protecting artists. I agree, AI is here to stay. There's ways that it can be incorporated, but we don't have a centralized way. Again, it comes back to transparency and consent. And how do we have the data to flow to actually reconcile and have this accuracy?
I'm saying it's a closed data set. It's everyone who's contributed a song to the data set that the AI has trained on has agreed to give their song in there. They've all consented. It's transparent.
Well, in this case, this is where new innovations, new revenue models can come to fruition. I think most artists would be okay to have their voice used on certain conditions, perhaps, if they were going to be compensated for it, right? And that there could be an opportunity to sign off so that their voice isn't being used for something controversial or against their values.
Arjun disagrees. Arjun, you could be singing.
I pretty much agree with everything that Charlie's saying except the last part. I think that, you know, there's a bunch of different conversations going on right now about whether AI is good or bad. I agree that AI is here to stay. I agree that, you know, the impact is significant. I agree with what Sunny is saying, that you can't avoid it and major labels are in and out. But I feel like it's still early days and the regulation hasn't come. Like with Bitcoin, the regulation is still to come, right? And I think that the impact of that is going to be significant. Like it's going to be massive, right? So the platforms are going to suffer if they don't pay heed to that because, of course, when you have like a class action lawsuit against whatever, there's going to be losers and winners, like Charlie said. So again, I think it's still very early to say that, what AI is going to do. I don't agree with this closed set analogy at all. I'll tell you why, right? One, I feel personally, and I've done some research on this, that the amount of data that is available for hit tracks in music is way less than any other media. If you look at the social media, which had open season, anybody could, AI was trained on visual content, with billions of hours of content, right? There was so much content in movies, there's so much content, like visual art has so much more content than audio art, right? So for the last 50 or 60, 70 years, whatever it has been of recorded music, there have been only about 100,000 hits. That's it. That is your data set, right? So, I mean, when you think about it like that, what is your closed data set going to do? It's going to do nothing because even with the 100,000 songs that we have, the reason why I feel like generative AI is so dangerous is because it's going to speed up the process to do that. It's going to generate a million more hits based on those 100,000. And then AI is going to get really good at writing hits. So I feel like I don't agree with the close thing. I think we should just, if it was up to me, just drop the whole thing. But it's not.
I mean, we're not here to say what's. I don't think we want to answer the question of whether it's good or bad. That doesn't matter. All of these models have studied everything there is to study. They already have access to everything there is to be learned from.
But that data is so small, though, right now. It's really, really small for audio.
Let me put this before you, right? During COVID, I think 2020, there was a mathematician and a composer who claimed that they had used an AI model to generate every composition possible, mathematically possible. And I know you'll say music's not maths, but every composition, essentially permutation and combination of a song possible, and they released it into the public domain, right? The moment they do that, it belongs to everyone. Anyone can go and interact with it, use it, however they like. Now, how do you feel?
I have an uncle who says that he solved the stock market. A lot of people say a lot of things, right? Like if this person has actually solved music, where are the hits?
They've not. So I'll tell you where I'm coming from also. Arjun, the name of our firm is Tin Nuts. Tin Nuts is an acronym for there is nothing new under the sun, right? And where I'm coming from also is every single person here has learned from those 100,000 hits, and what you're composing is a selection and arrangement of those hits in some sense.
Actually,
right?
no. So that's where you're wrong. I think that all musicians don't learn only from the hits. That's what makes good musicians, right?
And neither are all AI models learning from the hits.
No, but that's what's going to happen, right? When they figure out consumption patterns, they're only going to be trained on what's generating responses. Like, understand the cycle, right? Like, understand my point. I'm not saying I'm an expert on this. Please don't get me wrong. I'm totally open into understanding what you're saying. I'm just saying that if you train something on success, it's going to keep churning out the same thing. Whereas musicians don't think like that. We like artists. We like their bad songs. We like the good. We like the songs that have 20,000 streams.
I have a solution for that. I'll come to the solution for that. Good.
Not on the success. They get trained on the prompts, right? So a song can get actually trained on the flop song too, or the song which got only 10 streams or 15 streams too. It depends on how do you prompt it. It's not about they get only trained on the successful songs or the well-worked songs. So that's how things are working right now.
Again, I'm trying to arrive at the end of this. I made notes. Each of you have contributed to what's the future of, what are the guidelines that we're proposing to the music industry, right? I don't know if anyone will read these guidelines because they didn't seem to read them when we said that side loading onto mobile phones and laptops was not a good thing also. But Ankit, you said Pink Floyd as an artist earlier. And essentially, going back to what Arjun said, you're humanly connecting with an artist that's taking you to a song. There's all of this context that, by the way, AI does not understand context, right? Um, and artists like the gorillas. Who are the gorillas, right? That in today's day and age, it could be an AI-generated artist themselves that's creating AI-generated music. That could attract a fan following, unless you've met someone from the gorillas.
I have not. Um, but no, 100%. And I think I think one of the things that I'm a bit, I mean, I will say now, like Pink Floyd is probably a lot of people in this room also grew up on that, and it was a big part of my childhood. And unfortunately, I think that, they've just over the years not been as relevant, in the last, let's say, like 5 or 10 years. And I think that is one of the challenges that classic artists face, that if you are not constantly renewing yourself and renewing audiences that find you and people's perception of you, you do risk fading away. And I think that's one area where, essentially like generative AI can be helpful. Sorry.
Pop House Entertainment is an investor in Snafu.
That's correct.
And Pop House also has created ABBA Voyage.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes.
So, pointed question, where do you draw the line? You're saying legacy artists, and I'm sorry I'm sounding like I'm on Republic TV right now, but I really want the
nation needs to know.
The industry wants to know, at what point do we draw the line, right? At what point are we saying, okay, legacy artists who don't really want to be on stage anymore, don't want to tour the world, don't want to play at the richest people's weddings, really, but they're okay with sending a hologram, right? They're okay with sending a hologram. They may have not done Bollywood moves before, but this hologram can do it. Are you saying we're okay with that?
Absolutely. I think it comes back to, one of Arjun's earlier points of like, you draw the line when you have completely separated the art from the artist, because that's kind of where, you kind of lose the essence of why you're making music in the first place. There are, of course, like functional uses of music, like if you're in an elevator or you're reversing your car or whatever. I don't know if they still do that. But like, so there are, and those are great uses for AI music. Then there is this belief that you'll be able to all of a sudden like flood the market with unlimited supply, and you'll have like literally like a song for every possible occasion in your life. And I think that, I agree again with Arjun, that I think I don't necessarily see that outcome very clearly. Also because just imagine the storage costs of all of that music, right? If you started generating 1,000 times more music than you have today, like it's literally going to get too expensive to store somewhere, to access in the future, and like we just don't have infrastructure to to make that work. So I think just in general, a lot of the maybe functional aspects of music will probably just get outsourced to AI. But I also think, I mean, I have a lot of friends that work in like the diamond industry weirdly, and they've been like very threatened by the fact that now like lab-grown diamonds, you can make them for like 10% of the price of, I guess, like human mined diamonds. Which, again, for clarity, I'm very much for lab-grown, obviously. But
just like your choice in eggs at the supermarket.
Indeed,
yeah.
Indeed. But I mean, what I'm hearing from them is that just because they are cheaper and better and the supply is virtually now unlimited, that does not make them more in demand. The scarcity of, I guess, traditionally made diamonds is what makes them and what gives them their value.
Yep.
And I think we'll probably start seeing a similar trend for, I guess, human-written songs, where this was not made by an AI. This was like someone having a moment, having just gone through a heartbreak, and wrote it in the most tender moment of their life. And that's something that you want to relate to. And hopefully that's the way forward.
Oh, you've described every Arijit Singh song in the past 5 years, right? I'm sorry. I really feel that, and I was going to say there's a solution to this, right? And not necessarily a solution, but an observation. There was a closed set of a focus group of humans who were given only AI-generated music to listen to for hours. And they weren't told that it was AI-generated. And then a couple of days later, they were given another set of music to listen to for hours. They weren't told that it was generated by humans. Do we say generated by humans now? But was created by humans. And they defined a phenomena called uncanny valley. That is, when you get deep into listening to generative music, you find yourself a bit amiss. You find yourself grasping for where you are. Also, there's a state of disassociation that you face. Literally, I'm not joking about this. So, I think people will realize after a point, right? Do you agree?
No, I think will be very much like the diamond industry that I just mentioned. I have no relation to it, but that you will. You will functionally not be able to tell the difference between if a song has been made with AI or without. I think just because if you look at kind of how quickly we're making improvements in it, the models are also requiring less and less data to train. So it's not far that an artist themselves is going to be able to train their own model and be in charge of their data and so on. So.
At this point, just a show of hands, how many of you have questions for the panel? Okay. All right. We'll come. Yeah, we'll come to those questions later. You have one more thing to say, Sunny.
I mean, like, there's still a mediator called distributor who decides what's they want to distribute or not. Still, so like distributors like CD Baby or other distributors, basically the streaming platform, they don't accept direct data from artists or creators. So you have to go through distributors. They still have that scope of saying no to AI-generated music.
Okay. Quick poll from the audience. How many of you feel it's okay to work with a generative AI tool that's trained on a closed set of data? Closed meaning they've licensed the data or they've gotten... I know a lot of platforms who've literally paid people to create new songs on which the model is learning. So how many of you are okay with that? And the rest are not? Who's not okay with that? And everyone else is unsure? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry, I wasn't even looking. But the idea is to give also the people who are unsure some more material to make a decision, because ultimately we're going to make a decision as a population also. India is one of the few countries where for the purposes of protecting our IT industry, we protected computer outputs and software outputs in 1994. That's at that point, and as a result of that, we've not updated our copyright law now. Back then, we made sure that the person creating a data set or, let's say, even an Excel file or the output of a language learning model became the author of that. So they were giving in the prompt, they were becoming the author, and that's... But what's in our copyright law is actually the person who either owns that model or prompts and actions that model becomes the copyright owner. So no one would know, essentially. And in India, copyright vests with you the moment you create, right? Berne Convention, many countries similar like that around the world. So essentially, we could be generating this music, sending it out to all of the popular societies around the world, all of the popular platforms, and you know. So I really want to reach a conclusion on what's permissible, what's suggested, how do we get maybe a supply chain in place that augments this. Sunny just said the burden should maybe be on the distributors as an intermediary to decide whether a track goes out or not. Charlie, do you agree with that? Because I see a lot of tracks already not going out because of distributors. And maybe I'll give.
Well, I think like maybe 5, 10 in the future, will we need, like, what will distribution look like? Right? Will people be able to just do it directly themselves and remove the middle person? Right? Like, but I think everybody has a role to play in the immediate. And I would say like organization, well, I'm not going to say names, but distributors can be the place where when you're uploading, you can. Let me give you an example. In the university, we do a lot of like academic papers. We have to publish in peer review, and they always want to know the percentage of who did what when you're co-authoring in a good journal. Okay, so like, oh, this person did 10%, this person did 20%, right? And that's where you would disclose to what degree did you incorporate AI in the use of editing a paper or like looking at data. I think the same could happen in immediate when someone is uploading to through distribution, is to be transparent. And when you go into song credits, there you can see. I mean, I don't know, but this is where conversations with stakeholders could be really exciting.
So are we then giving the distributors the same power that social media platforms have today in determining what's fake news and what's actual news?
It could be one avenue, but I don't think it should be the be-all, end-all.
All right, so we've heard Sunny say artists should be able to check a box saying, yes, this has been touched by AI. We've then also heard about labels. We've spoken about distributors. Do you think users should have a choice on whether they want to listen to AI-generated music?
I was also going to say, like, the solution to, on the other side of figuring out if a song is opted in or AI generated, the platform itself where it's generated should put a watermark on the song when they're generating it. You know, that, hey, this is AI generated. Because you can't rely on the artist or the user to be able to discern, right? I mean, we already do that with Shazam and like everything else that, you know, the technology is there. So I'd probably say that.
So a new ISRC code that fingerprints the song and says, okay, this didn't come from a country, it came from an AI model. Right? The ISRC is an international standard for recordings. It's allotted to songs, and usually it can tell you which country a song has come from. And do you think that's a good suggestion, that we incorporate a digit or an alphabet that will tell you if it's come from AI?
I think that's the one that works best with the infrastructure that we have, where it's just saying, you know what, I mean, there's 2-3 platforms where you'd make it anyway, right? So like, you don't have to go to every distributor in the world. You have to go to 3 people and say, listen, if something's generated on your platform and it's going to come out commercially, that's going to generate money, people have a right to know that this was generated through your platform.
All right. I also want to come to the good side of it, because that's what we started off, and we spoke about anecdotes. And before we just throw the floor open for questions, I really want to touch on how AI can help or improve your experience, because that's really what all of you want, what all of us want, right? And it seems like there are certain sandboxes within which we're okay with AI, and then others that we're not. So, Arjun, you've got an AI lawyer tool that you're building at One Mind Technologies.
It's actually now called Valid Tech. We just changed the name of the company.
Wow.
So yeah.
Fantastic. You, I joked about you taking away my job, but I know that you've assured me it doesn't take away my job, but it's assisting. I mean, I'd be happy if it were to come close, in the sense that even for within the creative industries, legal services is a privilege, right?
Actually, that's the outlook we went into building this tool. It wasn't about taking away anyone's job or changing the industry. It's just the fact that the amount of musicians who work without contracts is astounding. If you look at, you know, the secondary, I mean, if you look at regional languages or if you look at hip hop in India, most of the work that happens is without contracts. So we saw that as something that needed to be changed, because when I started a music label, the first thing I had to learn was the legal side of music and how to protect my creativity and how to make sure that somebody doesn't steal it. And I feel like that's one of the areas that we wanted to add some value. So that's the whole outlook of like, how do we make somebody who has no legal experience, who has doesn't have like a lot of money to go to a lawyer, or is intimidated by going to a lawyer, or doesn't know who to contact, how do we give them the tools to, you know, build a simple contract between two people?
And another question on AI helping you. You work with a lot of brands from time to time, and you're featuring in some of their ads, you're doing some of their posts, and they probably call you to a photo shoot or an ad shoot and ask you to pose different clothes with different products, different sets. Would you be okay if you just went into a room once, a camera did a 360 of you, and then you wouldn't have to go to the shoots? It leaves all the time you need to create your music, and then you could just authorize different agencies to say, okay, I'm okay with this campaign, I'm not okay with that campaign and that photograph.
I think it already exists. So, you know, we have tools like Cameo where you just kind of do it once, like you wish somebody a happy birthday once, they make you read a script, and then the software just kind of generates many, many birthday wishes and anniversary wishes, and yeah. No, they don't actually do it. They do like some.
No. It's actually Shah Rukh Khan wishing you happy birthday. Yeah.
No, but it already exists, and you know, they give you like a nominal fee, and it's not that I haven't thought about signing up for these things, and I don't have anything against it. I feel like if you're an artist and you want to make that choice, go ahead. Like, I think it should empower the artist in any way.
How do you make that personal choice? How do you yourself decide? Is it based on how much free time it's creating for you, or how much of value?
I realize that I might sound really passionate about this subject. It's just that I'm really not. It just feels like I've come across as like anti-AI and AI is dystopia. I was just telling Ankit the same thing. I was like, we made it sound like AI is like, you know, destroy the music industry. I don't feel like that. I think my passion for this comes from the perspective that I feel like we don't understand it. And it comes from a place where it's like, okay, now what's the next step? And why aren't we asking those questions? Which is that how do we protect the artists whose lives can be overturned in like a day? You know, all these industries, like just coming back to your analogy of like, you know, piracy and Spotify and, sorry, I'll if you have a question, I'm just going to finish my point, right? So just coming back to his analogy where he was like, you know, piracy existed and then, you know, Spotify came to save the day. In that analogy, AI is the pirate. It's not Spotify coming to save the day. So why aren't we asking those questions? And that's where my passion is coming from for this.
AI as the pirate, yeah, it is. AI is the pirate till it's legitimized. And Charlie, earlier you said something about Suno, and it seems that Universal is also saying, okay, we're not okay with anyone learning, and Sunny, you said it as well, we're not okay with anyone learning from our songs, from our recordings. But a lot of people are asking the question, right? At what point, or what would it take for you to be okay, or how much money would it take for you to be okay with that happening? So I don't think anyone's fooled by the fact that there are very principled companies in this industry. It's money talks, right? So at what point will that happen? Yeah.
See, basically, we are working with suppliers. If the suppliers are okay, we are okay. We are just a platform. You keep your stuff here, people will come, listen, and go. That's okay. So if the suppliers are okay, we are absolutely okay. Because no one is accepting the content directly from creators. Anyways, even now. It's just Wink which is making difference, that Wink has Wink Studio, which is into distribution. So we accept the content directly, my team, and then we give it to Wink. But otherwise, the market, they are going through distributors only.
One last question for Charlie, and then we'll throw it open. Suno lawsuit. At what point do we say, okay, now they reach a settlement, and then it's all over, right? Then it's kosher. we paid the money, the labels have agreed, and we're okay to move on. Everyone can use Suno to create Toronto to Mumbai songs?
Possibly. What the public information was that they would be looking for damages up to $150,000 per song used to train the platform. Look, it comes back to what degree do we value music and fair use, which is about compensation and being ethically engaged and transparent. Consent.
Where I'm coming from, and I'm going to say something very controversial, it'll get me killed and I'll lose clients, but I'll say it anyway. And I'm throwing it open to the floor now. So if someone can get the mic right over there, I think Asad had a question, but Asad back there, Aishwarya, I think. Yeah, Aishwarya put up a hand first. Okay, yeah.
Ladies first.
Yeah.
Give it back.
We're in a country where the biggest labels today were the biggest pirates, right? Let's be clear about that. We fought them on 2 streets down. That's where we fought them, right? And they built the biggest businesses in this country. So let's be real about it. I mean, we're not, even with Suno, let's not get our hopes. And Arjun, I'm with you, right? It's, let's go after the pirates, but the fact is we are soon working for the pirates. So we need to put that, we need to put that framework in place so that we're working a little bit on our terms. There's some collective bargaining going on, and we'll open for the question now.
Is this on? Yeah. Okay. Not really a question, but a bunch of observations. I just wanted to ask everybody here, are we in agreement that the music industry, all the stakeholders that we talk about, primarily there's the creators and then there's the listeners, and all the other stakeholders are facilitators who facilitate the job of the creators creating music and the listeners enjoying the music that they create. If we agree that that is the sort of the lay of the land, and that's the role that every stakeholder brings in, then my personal view, and I would love to hear what other people feel, is that AI is great and it's here to stay, like all of you have in clear agreement. It is great as a tool of assistance, and something that can forensically craft music, but not necessarily create music from scratch. And something that you had mentioned earlier,
let me turn that, Aishwarya, into a question for the panel. And if you could also pass the mic to Asad here in the front. Aishwarya said something important. Creators on one side, listeners on the other side, everyone else is just a facilitator. Should only the creators and the users decide then?
I mean, at least, and again, obviously I'm a bit biased because I come from the label side. I think historically, there is something to the fact that maybe labels have taken a big piece of the pie than maybe they deserved in some cases. And the last 10 years or so has been a shift towards independent artists, where it's becoming, and for only good reasons, the industry is becoming more and more artist friendly. But I will say, having been there at ground zero and seen it close up, to make something that reaches and touches a lot of people, it takes more than one creator, right? It takes a village. And there's a lot of people that's involved in crafting the branding, in doing the album cover, in, everything from like making sure that the music reaches the listeners and so on. And I think that they deserve to be just as much a part of the success of a song as, the artist who ends up being the face of it at some point. They're the biggest, they're the CEO of it, but I can say no CEO is anything without, the people that work with that person as well. And I think, that's a little bit how I see it.
I can agree. I agree with it. It shouldn't be like just like the artists. And check, yeah. I kind of agree with Ankit. I think it's, should I just use your mic? It's kind of going in and out. Yeah. Sorry about that. So in short, I agree. I think that everybody involved in the project should get some credit, and I don't think artists make it themselves. As an artist, I know that, like, I've been signed to every major label in India, from Sony Music, Universal, all the Indian labels as well. And every single label added some value to my career. I think it's very easy to like blame the label and say you guys are bad guys. But I think it really comes down to artists becoming more educated about protecting their rights. And I feel like once you're more educated, you can protect yourself. I did it for my first song because somebody told me, hey, you should ask for royalties on your track. That was in 2015. There were no pop songs out. You know, my first song was literally, I had to beg some radio stations to play it, and it became a hit. But it is possible. I don't think that labels are evil. They're just businesses, like Ankit said. They're
well, thank you guys for a very riveting discussion. The question is, you know, we're talking about music, but suppose you expand this to the other creative industries. You look at literature, you look at cinema. Are there any best practices, any inferences you can draw that will actually, you know, pave the way to be more ethical, or, you know, in that genre? And the second part of the question, and don't shoot me for this, but, and more from an Indian perspective, is what do you think of the role of government in writing creative policy, especially to do with AI in the creative industries?
It's, you know, in the university, we have this thing where when students submit assignments, it can detect plagiarism. And now tools are being used to also detect if ChatGPT or other tools have been used as well, right? So it's not art, but this is a tool that probably could be transferable to poetry or literature and so forth, right? So it's developing. I mean, it's interesting because AI is going to influence public policy, and public policy is going to ricochet and influence AI. And again, we're in that phase where when I say public policy, I position it as everything government does or doesn't do, and typically way too slow to move things along. Oh, a new microphone? Okay. But government and public policy is instrumental in ensuring that we have regulation, ensure fair use. That, yeah. So I mean, it's in Canada, it would be a bit different. You know, the government has committees, goes through Senate, politicians, people can advocate. You know, we have so many organizations that go to policymakers. You know, SOCAN, Songwriters Association of Canada, Music Publishers Association, so forth, right? And when they hear the same message, this is like advocacy at its finest. But there's also people that are like advocating contrary to what you are. So bottom line is public policy will be everything in really making this something that people can put into practice and have it regulated.
From an Indian perspective, I'd like to say this. More than we have a good lobby of the music industry that, you know, lobbies the government on and tries to make sure things are fair for the music industry, maybe not the creative industry. Same goes to film. The others not so well represented, I would say, but primarily music and film make sure that things stay laissez-faire, if not fair. The idea is, what I would propose is, we're speaking about creators and listeners earlier. We need to be talking to the creators of these apps. We need to be talking to each of the developers who actually work with this. It's not a hidden fact that most venture capitalists in India don't understand the music industry, and that is why music tech companies, and Arjun's nodding. I'm sure he's faced some of those tough boardrooms where you have to first explain the music industry and then get to your pitch deck. But the point I'm trying to make is we need to sensitize the tech and every stakeholder on the tech side of what the creative process is, what is a closed data set, what's an open data set, and we need to begin there before we even have these conversations internally and say, okay, we want you to know this, we want you to know, because mind you, Suno is being created in India, right? So this is at the back end, it's all of us that are powering this. I think that kind of education for the tech stakeholders, that's very important. So more than lobbying the government, Asad, we need to lobby NASSCOM. Make sure every single one of them understands the value of things that they haven't licensed yet, and understand that they need to start paying for this. Because those guys are the real pirates today. And they're the 10,000 startups of India. Sorry, no pun intended. Over to the gentleman in pink who has a question.
Hi. So this is in context with, so I'm Abhinay Koparji. I run a community called Algorave India. And we've been doing things with generative AI and generative arts in the country for a while now. And in fact, I've been doing things with generative arts for the past 20 years. And what we're actually calling artificial intelligence. I want to know your perspectives. How much of this is intelligence and not artificial regurgitation, actually?
I think that's a very good question, and I don't think anybody knows, but from whatever I've read, I recently read this machine learning book, and it was about how AI is terrible at predicting causality, right? Like it's great at correlating stuff, very bad at predicting causality. It's really good at predicting the next word. But what the whole message is, nobody really knows, right? So it hallucinates, it does all kinds of things. With ChatGPT, there's been so many examples where it's been dead wrong, So
I think in terms of policy, one of the major important things is actually following policy of other countries, right? Because there is no standard yet. In the United States, to register a copyright, you have to say which percentage, as Charlie was saying, was using AI, whether it was percentage of the lyrics, the melody, the instrumentation, whatever it was. And that's what the Register of Copyrights is in the U.S. now. So the important thing first is the copyright, because if we want to protect copyright, we have to know what the copyright is. And in India, if it's different, as you were saying, eventually things follow patterns, right? And
I agree with you, Robert. But again, another controversial thing. We are writing the code. We should decide this time. We're writing all of that code for it. We should decide. We've got an industry that's also fighting this battle. So rather than following what's been done and declaring how much of AI has contributed to it, I think we need to have a discussion with all the stakeholders, including the tech stakeholders, to understand how we're going to treat this. Because the US copyright registry may say whatever, right? They may say whatever again, but it's the codes being written here, the works are technically being generated here. So unless we get our act in order,
lawsuits.
Yeah, the product teams, the engineers, basically, they have to get trained. I mean, they should understand the value, what he said.
Yeah, could I bring up a question? Is this on? Hello? You said something that was so evocative that I think we need to take the debate to that, which is the root of music. And it's, like she said, it's a beautiful fabrication of humanity, and it had a deeper, soulful purpose. Now, in the Indian context, there's a Guru Shishya Parampara. You are picking up something that existed 5,000, 10,000 years ago from the Guru, and then taking it to the next level. So you have an Ustad like Zakir Hussain. So that evolution took time, and it built identities in the music industry. What is going to happen when you put down 80,000 songs, like the daily generation of a Suno, and a new generation grows up not even knowing what is the parampara, what is the basic rag system, what is the culture around the music of this country. That's going to die, and that soul element, if that's gone from music, then it's a commodity like anything that can be created by technology.
It's not about that. The AI would actually help you creating songs with ragas also, on anything and everything. Basically, the thing is that what we were discussing also is about right prompting. The way YouTube teaches you and gives you certificates of how to search or XYZ ABCD do on YouTube, these AI companies should come up with a certification saying that this is how you should use the right prompting. And that is going to help the next generation to create sensible content. That's what I think personally.
Hi, I have a question. So as a country where copyright societies and collection bodies primarily work on a ceiling deal, and with the advent of AI content gushing in the market, how do we ensure the balance is maintained in royalty payments?
Sorry, they work with a C and D, you said?
No, I said with advent, like AI content gushing in the market and a ceiling deal.
Oh, a ceiling.
Ceiling
yeah.
deal.
You mean like a minimum guarantee?
Yeah.
Wow, tough question, Deb. See, what Deb is saying, our copyright society works on setting a minimum guarantee for what it values the music at with the DSP, and then takes that minimum amount of money from the DSP, and then takes like a per stream rate of royalties. Is the question, should it be different for generative music?
Because if talking of as what you said, then technically there are no royalties because they've given up their rights. So then how do we evaluate?
There's no, I mean, capitalistic me would say there's no royalties unless I want to charge royalties. There's nothing stopping the generative AI companies from registering those works at IPRS today under the name of under their own names, the individuals at those companies basically banking those royalties. What kind of stops them today is the IPI number. That's how you identify an author. That's how you identify a publisher. And that's essentially how you make sure it's a human involved that has created the work and the work is linked with a human. I think that needs to be improved. Going back to and Asad, I'll take a minute because I've put down some takeaways for everyone. I think that's really important for any of the panels we do. In terms of where we're going from here, we need a strong set of, we need, number one, all the stakeholders to come through, from creator to listener and everyone in between, to first sit at the table, understand what the nuances are. We've said that we're okay with a certain amount of things. The audience has also expressed we're okay with AI in certain aspects. But I'd request everyone to examine the larger implications of those decisions also. This one good thing that we spoke about was the checkbox. I don't know if it's been developed here for the first time or discussed here for the first time, and essentially a supply chain where every single stakeholder says, okay, this has been touched by AI or not, including the user saying whether they would like to listen to generative music. And the final closing statement I'd like to leave you with all today, and then think about what we've discussed, is we're in an age where AI is trying to be more human and humans are trying to be more AI. So make the right decision, not the generative one.
Thank you to our panel. You know, the reason I came in between you and your questions, at 8 o'clock sharp, you'll hear blaring music from the next room that is not generated by AI, but someone's 25th wedding anniversary. So before we crash their party, I just want to thank our panelists. Thank you, Ankit, Arjun, Sunny, and Charlie, and to Raphael for so skillfully moderating the session. But a big thank you to our partners at IFBI, Sarita and Maitri. You know, they've been extremely supportive for everything we come to them with. 3 years ago, we embarked on a journey of looking at NFTs in music, and now we're talking about AI in this room. But and to the India Music Exchange for their collaboration. We have many more programs lined up. In fact, this week, this is the first of the three we have. We have it at the Royal Opera House. We have a talk around a book on Bollywood in the 70s, and we have an Emmy award-winning all-boys choir coming in on Friday. So if any interest, please come, follow us or stalk us on social media or check out our website. But most of all, thank you guys for being here in such big numbers. I know it's a Monday night and we have 130 people in this room and many more joining the stream. But thank you for doing this and have a wonderful evening. I think this is just many of the conversations we've started, but there'll be, I'm sure, many, many more. Thank you. Have a good night.